Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm 26 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who I could count on in this world. I thought family meant everything. I thought blood was thicker than water. I thought my parents would always have my back, no matter what. Boy, was I wrong. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting in my tiny studio apartment, completely cut off from the family I'd spent my entire life loving and trusting, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am, and the story of how I got here is something I never thought I'd have to tell. It all started with Jake, my ex-boyfriend of 3 years, the man I thought I was going to marry. The man who shattered my heart into a million pieces and somehow still managed to charm his way into my family's good graces even after everything fell apart between us. The hook that started this whole nightmare? A single phone call on a Tuesday evening that changed everything. I was making dinner in the kitchen of my childhood home, where I'd been living since the breakup 6 months earlier. My parents had been incredibly supportive during those dark months, letting me move back in while I got back on my feet emotionally and financially. Or at least, I thought they were being supportive. The phone rang and I heard my mother's voice from the living room, bright and cheerful in a way that made my stomach twist. "Oh, Jake, how wonderful to hear from you. Yes, she's here. How have you been, sweetheart?" Sweetheart. She called my ex-boyfriend sweetheart while I was standing 10 feet away, stirring pasta sauce and trying not to vomit from the betrayal I felt creeping up my throat. I dropped the wooden spoon and marched into the living room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Mom, hang up the phone," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me with this confused expression, like I was being unreasonable. "Sarah, don't be rude. Jake just wants to talk." "I don't care what Jake wants. Hang up the phone." My father looked up from his newspaper with that disappointed expression I'd seen too many times lately. "Sarah, there's no need to be childish about this." Childish? Childish? "Give me the phone, Mom," I said, holding out my hand. She reluctantly passed it over, and I took a deep breath before speaking. "Jake, stop calling this house. We're done. We've been done for 6 months. Leave me alone." His voice came through the speaker, smooth and manipulative as always. "Sarah, baby, I just want to make things right. I miss you. I miss us. And I know your parents miss having me around too." That's when it hit me like a slap in the face. He'd been calling regularly. This wasn't the first conversation. They'd been talking to my ex-boyfriend behind my back for months, while watching me cry myself to sleep every night. "Don't call here again," I said, and hung up. The silence in the room was deafening. My parents stared at me like I'd committed a crime. "Sarah, you're being very harsh. Jake made a mistake, but he's trying to make amends. He's a good man." A good man? A good man. A good man doesn't cheat on his girlfriend with her best friend. A good man doesn't lie for 8 months while carrying on an affair. A good man doesn't gaslight his girlfriend into thinking she's crazy for suspecting something. My father folded his newspaper and looked at me with those cold, judgmental eyes. "Relationships are complicated, Sarah. People make mistakes. The mature thing would be to forgive and move forward." I felt like I was living in an alternate universe. These were the same parents who had held me when I cried when I found out about Jake's affair. These were the same parents who had assured me that I deserved better, that I was right to end things, that they supported my decision completely. "Are you seriously taking his side right now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're not taking sides," my mother said, but her tone suggested otherwise. "We just think you should consider giving him another chance. He's been so remorseful, Sarah. He calls here almost every day, asking about you, wanting to make things right. Every day. He'd been calling every day, and they'd been entertaining these conversations while I was upstairs trying to rebuild my life. He cheated on me with Rebecca," I said, speaking slowly, like I was talking to children. "My best friend since college. They were sleeping together in our apartment, in our bed, for 8 months. 8 months, Mom. While I was planning our future, picking out wedding dresses, talking about kids, he was screwing my best friend." "Language, Sarah," he said sharply. "Language?" He was worried about my language? "You know what? I can't do this right now," I said, turning toward the stairs. "Sarah, wait. Let's talk about this rationally. Jake has been going to therapy. He's changed. He realizes what he lost." I stopped dead in my tracks and turned around slowly. What he lost? What about what I lost? What about my pain? What about the fact that I lost my boyfriend and my best friend in one day? What about the fact that I've been living in this house crying every night while you've been having cozy chats with the man who destroyed my ability to trust anyone? The look on their faces told me everything I needed to know. They didn't see it that way. They saw Jake as the victim here, the poor, misguided man who just needed love and understanding to find his way back to the light. "He made a mistake, Mom," she repeated. "But he loves you, Sarah. Real love means forgiveness." That's when I knew I was completely alone in this house. These people who raised me, who were supposed to love me unconditionally, had chosen my ex-boyfriend over their own daughter. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my keys from the counter. "Where are you going?" my father asked. "Out," I said, slamming the door behind me. I drove around for 3 hours that night, crying and thinking and trying to figure out how my life had gotten so messed up. When I came back, there was a note on the kitchen counter in my mother's handwriting. "Sarah, we invited Jake over for dinner tomorrow night. We think it would be good for all of us to talk this through together. Please keep an open mind. Love, Mom and Dad." I stood there staring at that note for 10 minutes, reading it over and over again, waiting for the words to change into something that made sense. But they didn't change. My parents had invited my cheating ex-boyfriend to dinner without asking me, without considering my feelings, without caring that this was the last thing in the world I wanted. That's when I knew I had to make a choice that would change everything. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling when I was 12, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to run away. I wasn't going to hide in my room while my parents played happy family with my ex-boyfriend. I was going to face this head-on, and I was going to make sure everyone understood exactly where I stood. I spent the day apartment hunting online, making lists, and preparing for what I knew was going to be the worst dinner of my life. At 6 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I heard my mother's delighted squeal from downstairs. "Jake! Oh, you look wonderful. Come in, come in." I took a deep breath, checked my reflection in the mirror one more time, and headed downstairs. I was wearing my best dress, had done my hair and makeup perfectly, and was carrying myself with all the confidence I could muster. If this was going to be a performance, I was going to be the star of the show. Jake was standing in the foyer holding a bouquet of roses, my favorite flowers, which he remembered, of course, and looking annoyingly handsome in that casual but expensive way that had first attracted me to him 3 years ago. "Sarah," he said, his voice soft and hopeful. "You look beautiful." "Jake," I replied coolly. "You look like someone who cheated on me with my best friend." The smile faltered on his face, and I saw my parents exchange a look. "Sarah," my father warned. "What, Dad? Too honest for you?" We moved to the dining room, where my mother had set the table with her best china and lit candles like this was some kind of romantic occasion. The irony was not lost on me. As we sat down, Jake in my usual spot next to my father, naturally, I decided to take control of the conversation from the beginning. "So, Jake, how's Rebecca?" He nearly choked on his water. "Sarah, please." "Please what? I'm just making conversation. You two are still together, right? I mean, it would be awful if she was just a rebound after our 3-year relationship ended." "They broke up," my mother said quickly. "Jake told us. It was a mistake, Sarah. The whole thing was a mistake." "Oh, they broke up?" I said, raising my eyebrows. "When?" Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "About a month ago." "A month ago? Interesting timing. Right around when you started calling here every day, I'd guess." My father set down his fork. "Sarah, this attitude is exactly why we thought it was important to have this dinner. You're being vindictive." Vindictive. The word hit me like a physical blow. "I'm being vindictive?" I laughed, and it came out bitter and harsh. "Dad, let me tell you what vindictive would look like. Vindictive would be me posting those screenshots of Jake's text messages with Rebecca on social media. Vindictive would be me telling his boss about the time he stole from the company's petty cash. Vindictive would be me sharing the photos I have of him doing cocaine at your anniversary party last year." The color drained from my parents' faces. Jake's too. "You wouldn't," Jake said quietly. "You're right. I wouldn't, because unlike some people at this table, I have integrity." "Sarah," my mother said, her voice shaking slightly, "there's no need for threats." "I'm not threatening anyone, Mom. I'm just pointing out that if I wanted to be vindictive, I have plenty of ammunition. But instead, I'm sitting here having dinner with the man who broke my heart, while my own parents tell me I should forgive and forget because people make mistakes." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Jake cleared his throat. "Sarah, I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm a different person now. I've been going to therapy, working on myself. I realized that what I had with Rebecca wasn't real. What we had was real. What we had was real." I emphasized the past tense, Jake. "What we had is over." "It doesn't have to be," he said, leaning forward with that earnest expression that used to make me melt. Now it just made me angry. "I know I can make this right. I know I can earn your trust back." "No," I said simply, "you can't." "Sarah, be reasonable," my father interjected. "Jake has been nothing but respectful and remorseful. He's trying to make amends." "Reasonable?" I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. "You want me to be reasonable? Okay, let's be reasonable. Jake, tell my parents about the abortion." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Jake went white as a sheet. "Sarah, don't." "Tell them," I said, my voice steady despite the way my hands were shaking. "Tell them about how you got Rebecca pregnant and paid for her abortion without telling me. Tell them how I found out when I saw the receipt in your wallet." My mother gasped. My father looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. "Tell them about how you tried to convince me it was an old receipt, that it wasn't what it looked like, that I was crazy for even thinking it. Tell them about how you made me feel like I was losing my mind for 3 weeks before I finally got Rebecca to admit the truth." "Sarah, please," Jake said, his voice breaking. It's not the whole story." "Then tell them the whole story," I said, crossing my arms. "I'm listening." He opened and closed his mouth like a fish, unable to find words. "Nothing to say?
That's interesting, because you had plenty of say when you were gaslighting me about it. You had plenty of say when you convinced me I was imagining things. I turned to my parents, who looked shock-shelled. This is the man you want me to take back? This is the man you think I should forgive? This is the man you've been having secret phone conversations with while I've been upstairs trying to put my life back together. We didn't know, my mother whispered. No, you didn't know. Because you never asked. You never asked me for my side of the story. You never asked me what really happened. You just assumed that your precious Jake was the victim here and that I was being unreasonable. I walked around the table and picked up my purse from the counter. Where are you going? My father asked. I'm leaving. I'm done with this dinner, I'm done with this conversation, and I'm done pretending that any of this is okay. Sarah, wait, my mother said, standing up. Let's talk about this. We can work through this as a family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family? Mom, you chose him over me. Both of you did. You chose my lying, cheating, manipulative ex-boyfriend over your own daughter. That's not what family does. We love you, Sarah. We just want what's best for you. No, Dad. You want what's easiest for you. You want me to take Jake back so you can go back to having your cozy little family dinners and pretending that everything is perfect. You want me to forgive him so you don't have to deal with the messy reality of what he actually did to me. I walked toward the front door and they all followed me. Sarah, please don't leave like this, my mother pleaded. I turned around at the door and looked at the three of them standing there, my parents and my ex-boyfriend, united against me. I love you both, I said to my parents, but I won't stay in a house where I'm not supported, where I'm not believed, and where my pain doesn't matter. I won't sit at a table with someone who broke my heart while you tell me I should be grateful for the opportunity. You're being dramatic, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Dad, answer me this. If some man had treated your daughter the way Jake treated me, what would you tell her? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Exactly, I said. You'd tell her to run as far and as fast as she could, but because it's Jake, because you like Jake, because he's charming and successful and says all the right things, I'm supposed to ignore my own instincts and take him back? I opened the door and stepped outside. If you change your mind, my mother called after me, you know where to find us. I stopped and turned around one more time. No, Mom.
I ended up at a hotel that night, a cheap one, near the highway that smelled like cigarettes and disinfectant. I sat on the scratchy comforter, still wearing my dinner dress, and tried to process what had just happened. I had just walked away from my family. My parents, the people who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with homework, and celebrated every milestone in my life, had chosen my ex-boyfriend over me. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Looking back now, I could see the signs. The way they'd always lit up when Jake came around. The way they'd ask about him constantly during our relationship. The way they'd seemed almost disappointed when I told them we'd broken up. He's such a nice young man, my mother had said after our first breakup conversation. Are you sure you can't work things out? I thought she was just being hopeful, maybe a little naive about relationships. I never imagined she was already planning his comeback tour. I called my sister Lisa, who lived 2 states away with her husband and kids. It was late, but I needed to talk to someone who shared my DNA and might possibly be on my side. Sarah, it's almost midnight. Are you okay? Lisa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, you're scaring me. What's wrong? I told her everything. The phone calls, the dinner invitation, the conversation, Jake's reaction to my revelation about the abortion, everything. The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Lisa, are you there? I'm here, she said quietly. I'm just trying to figure out how to tell you something without making everything worse. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Sarah, Jake called me last week. The world tilted on its axis. He what? He called me. He said he was trying to make things right with you and he wanted my advice on how to approach you. He wanted to know if I thought you'd ever forgive him. And what did you tell him? Another long pause. I told him that if he really loved you, he'd leave you alone. I felt a surge of relief that at least one person in my family had common sense. But Sarah, he also told me that Mom and Dad have been really supportive of him trying to win you back. He said they think you're making a mistake. They told him that? Apparently. He said Mom told him that you've always been dramatic about relationships and that you just needed time to cool down. Dramatic about relationships. There it was again. Lisa, do you think I'm being dramatic? Sarah, he cheated on you with your best friend and got her pregnant. If my husband did that to me, I wouldn't just leave him. I'd burn the house down with him in it. Despite everything, I laughed. Leave it to Lisa to put things in perspective. So what are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. I can't go back there, not after tonight, but I don't have anywhere else to go. You could come stay with us for a while. The kids would love to see their Aunt Sarah. I was tempted. The idea of running away to Lisa's house, sleeping in her guest room, playing with my nephews, and pretending none of this was happening sounded like heaven. But I knew it wasn't the answer. Thank you, but no. I need to figure this out on my own. I need to stay here and deal with this. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Lisa, can you do me a favor? Anything. Don't tell Mom and Dad we talked. I need some time to figure out my next move without them getting updates on my mental status. Of course. But Sarah, I'm proud of you. For what? For standing up for yourself, for not letting them manipulate you into going back to someone who treated you like garbage, for knowing your worth. After I hung up, I sat in that terrible hotel room and cried for about an hour. Then I opened my laptop and started apartment hunting in earnest. By morning, I had 3 apartment viewings scheduled and a plan. The first apartment was a disaster, tiny, overpriced, and located next to what appeared to be a motorcycle repair shop. The second was better, but still too expensive for my budget. The third apartment was perfect. It was a small studio in an older building downtown with huge windows that let in tons of light and hardwood floors that reminded me of my grandmother's house. The rent was reasonable, and the landlord, Mrs. Chen, was a tiny elderly woman who seemed more interested in whether I was good people than whether I made enough money to afford the place. You have honest eyes, she told me after our 5-minute interview. Honest eyes and sad story, I think. You running away from something? Something like that, I admitted. Good. Running away from bad things shows good sense. You take apartment? I'll take the apartment. I put down the deposit that afternoon and arranged to move in at the end of the week. That evening, I drove by my parents' house to pick up my things. I waited until I saw my father's car leave. He always went to the hardware store on Thursday evenings, before knocking on the door. My mother answered, and her face lit up with hope. Sarah, I was hoping you'd come back. We need to talk about yesterday. I'm here to get my stuff, Mom. I found an apartment. The hope died in her eyes. Sarah, you don't have to do this. We can work through this as a family. Can we? Because last night didn't feel like family to me. She followed me upstairs to my room, hovering in the doorway while I pulled out suitcases and started packing. He's not a bad person, Sarah. People make mistakes. I stopped folding clothes and turned to face her. Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Jake didn't make a mistake. Mistakes are accidental. Mistakes are things you do without thinking. Jake made a choice.
Every day for 8 months, he chose to lie to me. He chose to cheat on me. He chose to betray me with someone I trusted. Those weren't mistakes. Those were deliberate actions. But he's changed. How do you know? Because he told you? Mom, he's a liar. He's really, really good at lying. That's how he managed to fool me for 8 months. She was quiet for a moment, watching me pack my books. She said finally, I just don't want you to make a decision you'll regret. The only thing I regret, I said, taping up a box, is that it took me this long to realize that you never supported me at all. You supported the idea of me being in a relationship. You supported the idea of me being happy, but you never supported me as a person, as your daughter, as someone whose feelings and opinions mattered. That's not true. I finished packing and loaded everything into my car. My mother stood on the front porch, watching me, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. I love you, Mom, I said as I closed the trunk. But I won't come back here until you decide that you love me more than you love the idea of me being with Jake. And if that never happens? The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. Then I guess we'll find out what kind of people we really are, I said and drove away.
Moving into my studio apartment was simultaneously the most liberating and the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely on my own. No parents, no boyfriend, no safety net. Just me and my boxes. And Mrs. Chen, who brought me homemade soup on my first night and told me that independence builds character, but soup builds strength. I loved her immediately. The first few weeks were rough. I'd been so focused on escaping the situation at my parents' house that I hadn't fully processed what I was walking into. I was starting over from scratch at 26, with a broken heart, a fractured family, and no idea how to build a life that was entirely my own. But you know what? It was also amazing. For the first time in 3 years, I could eat whatever I wanted for dinner without checking if Jake would like it. I could watch romantic comedies without him rolling his eyes and making comments about how unrealistic they were. I could leave dishes in the sink overnight without someone passive-aggressively pointing out that some people didn't clean up after themselves. I could breathe. I threw myself into work with a dedication that surprised my boss. I'd been coasting for months, distracted by heartbreak and family drama, but suddenly I had focus again. I had a purpose. I was building something that was mine, and no one could take it away from me. 3 weeks into my new life, I got a text from my mother. Jake stopped by today. He wanted to know if you were okay. He's very worried about you. I stared at that text for a full minute, trying to figure out how to respond. Finally, I typed back, "Please ask Jake to stop contacting you about me. This is exactly the behavior that drove me away in the first place." Her response came immediately. "He cares about you, Sarah. If he cared about me, he wouldn't have cheated on me. Please stop enabling his inability to accept that we're over." She didn't respond to that. A few days later, I got a call from my father. "Sarah, your mother is very upset. She thinks you blame us for everything that went wrong with Jake." "I don't blame you for Jake's choices, Dad. I blame you for your choices." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I blame you for choosing him over me. I blame you for not supporting me when I needed you most. I blame you for making me feel like my pain didn't matter because it was inconvenient for your relationship with him." We never meant to make you feel that way." "But you did. And instead of acknowledging that and apologizing, you're calling me to tell me that Mom is upset. What about me, Dad? Are you upset that your daughter feels so unsupported by her own family that she had to move out?" Long pause. "We miss you," he said finally. "I miss you too, but missing someone and accepting their behavior are two different things." After I hung up, I realized something important. I was actually okay. For the first time in months, I felt like I could handle whatever came next. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done since the breakup. I went out with friends. Real friends this time. Not Rebecca, obviously, who had disappeared from my life completely after the truth came out. These were work friends, people who knew me as Sarah, the competent marketing coordinator, not Sarah, the girl whose boyfriend cheated on her. We went to a new restaurant downtown, and I found myself laughing. Really laughing for the first time in months. I was telling a story about Mrs. Chen trying to teach me to make dumplings when I felt someone watching me. I looked up to see Jake, standing by the bar, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to maintain eye contact. I wasn't going to let him ruin my first good night in months. He walked over to our table. "Sarah," he said, ignoring my friends completely. "Can we talk?" "No," I said, simply, turning back to my conversation. "Please, just 5 minutes." "Jake," I looked up at him again. "I'm here with my friends, having a nice time. Please don't make this weird." "I'm not trying to make anything weird. I just need to talk to you." One of my friends, Maria, spoke up. "She said no, dude. Maybe take the hint?" Jake's jaw tightened. He'd never liked being called out, especially by people he didn't know. "This is between Sarah and me," he said to Maria. "Actually, it's not between anyone," I said, standing up, "because there is no Sarah and you anymore. There's just Sarah, living her life, and you apparently unable to accept reality." I threw some money on the table and looked at my friends. "I'm sorry, guys. I need to leave." "We'll come with you," Maria said immediately. "You don't have to." "Yes, we do," Tom said, our graphic designer. "That's what friends do." As we walked toward the exit, Jake followed us. "Sarah, please. Your parents think—" I spun around so fast he nearly walked into me. "My parents? What do my parents have to do with this, Jake?" "They're concerned about you, Sarah. We all are." "We?" I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "There is no we, Jake. There's you stalking me and refusing to accept that we're over. There are my parents apparently discussing my personal business with my ex-boyfriend. And there's me trying to build a new life while all of you seem determined to drag me back into the drama I escaped." "I'm not stalking you," he protested. "I just happened to see you here." "You just happened to see me at a restaurant in a part of town you never go to on the same night I decided to go out for the first time in months? That's a pretty big coincidence, Jake." His face flushed red. "Your mother mentioned you might be here." And there it was. My mother had told my ex-boyfriend where I was going to be, essentially setting up an ambush. I felt something break inside me. Not my heart this time, but something deeper. The last bit of faith I'd had that my parents might come around, that they might choose me over him eventually. "Tell my parents," I said, my voice deadly calm, "that if they give you any more information about me, about where I am or what I'm doing, I will consider it harassment and I will take appropriate action." "Sarah, they're just worried." "Tell them that I am an adult, and if they have concerns about me, they can call me directly instead of using my ex-boyfriend as a go-between." I turned and walked away, my friends flanking me like bodyguards. Once we were outside, Maria put her arm around me. "Holy shit, Sarah, that was intense. Are you okay?" "I'm actually better than okay. I'm done. Done with him? Done with all of it. Done with him, done with my parents enabling him, done with feeling guilty for setting boundaries. I'm just done." Tom hailed a cab for me. "You sure you don't want to come back to my place? We could watch movies and eat ice cream and trash talk your ex all night." I smiled. A real smile this time. "That sounds amazing, but I need to go home and make some phone calls." When I got back to my apartment, I sat down with my laptop and did something I probably should have done weeks ago. I blocked Jake on every social media platform, blocked his phone number, and sent my parents a very clear email outlining my boundaries going forward. Then I opened a bottle of wine, put on my favorite playlist, and started planning the next chapter of my life.
2 months into my new independent life, I thought I had everything figured out. I was settling into routines, making new friends, and slowly rebuilding my confidence. My parents and I were in a cold war of sorts. We'd text occasionally about superficial things, but the elephant in the room remained unaddressed. Then my world got turned upside down again. I was at work on a Friday afternoon when I got a call from Rebecca. Yes, that Rebecca, my former best friend, Jake's affair partner, the woman I hadn't spoken to since everything exploded. "Sarah, I need to see you." Her voice sounded strange, shaky, urgent, nothing like the confident Rebecca I'd known for years. "Rebecca, I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I have something I need to tell you. Something about Jake and your parents." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "I can't say this over the phone. Please, Sarah, meet me for coffee. 1 hour. Then I'll leave you alone forever, if that's what you want." Against my better judgment, I agreed. She was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived at the coffee shop, looking terrible. Her hair was unwashed, she had dark circles under her eyes, and she kept fidgeting with her hands like she was nervous about something. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "What do you want, Rebecca?" She took a deep breath. "I need to tell you the truth about everything. About Jake, about the affair, about your parents." "I already know the truth about the affair. I lived through it, remember?" "You don't know all of it." She looked around the coffee shop like she was afraid someone was listening. "Sarah, the affair didn't start the way Jake told you it started." "I don't want to hear this." "Yes, you do, because it's going to explain everything that's been happening with your family." Beside myself, I was curious. "Fine, talk." Rebecca wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. "The affair didn't start 8 months before you found out. It started 2 years before you found out." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. 2 years? Almost your entire relationship with Jake, Sarah. I'm so sorry. But there's more. Your parents knew. The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Your parents knew about us. They found out about a year ago." I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too hot, too loud. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Your mother saw us together at that restaurant downtown, the one with the outdoor seating. We thought we were being careful, but she was there with her book club. She saw Jake kiss me." I remembered that day. My mother had come home acting strange, quiet, and distracted. When I'd asked if everything was okay, she'd said she just had a headache. She confronted Jake the next week. She told him that she'd seen us and demanded to know what was going on. And? And he told her everything. About how unhappy he was, about how he felt trapped in your relationship, about how he wanted to leave but didn't want to hurt you. My hands were shaking. I gripped my coffee cup so tightly I was surprised it didn't shatter. What did my mother say? Rebecca looked down at her hands. She told him to be patient. She told him that you were fragile and that a breakup would devastate you. She asked him to wait until you were stronger before ending things. She asked him to keep cheating on me? She asked him to be kind about the timing. But Sarah, that's not the worst part. There's worse? The worst part is what she offered him. What do you mean? Rebecca looked up at me, and I saw genuine remorse in her eyes for the first time since this whole nightmare began. She offered to help him ease you into the idea of breaking up. She said she'd start pointing out your incompatibilities, start suggesting that maybe you two weren't as perfect together as you thought. She said she'd help him prepare you for the breakup so it wouldn't come as such a shock. My mother was sabotaging my relationship? Yes, she was trying to help Jake break up with you gently. But then, she trailed off. Then what? She changed her mind. I stared at her. What do you mean she changed her mind? About 3 months before you found out about us, your mother started pushing Jake to stay with you instead. She started telling him that maybe he was making a mistake, that maybe he just needed to try harder, that maybe he was having a midlife crisis or something. A midlife crisis? He's 28. I know, it didn't make sense to me either, but she kept calling him, kept inviting him over for these heart-to-heart conversations about your relationship. She started telling him how much she and your father loved him, how perfect he was for you, that he just needed to work through his feelings instead of giving up. I felt sick, physically, nauseated sick. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. My mother found out Jake was cheating on me. First, she helped him plan to break up with me gently. Then she decided she liked him too much to let him go, so she started convincing him to stay with me and work things out. Yes. While he was still cheating on me with you? Yes. And my father? He found out when your mother told him. He wasn't as involved in the conversations with Jake, but he knew what was going on. I sat there for a moment, trying to process this information. My parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, support me, love me unconditionally, had known for over a year that my boyfriend was cheating on me and had actively participated in covering it up? Rebecca, I said finally, why are you telling me this now? She looked uncomfortable. Because Jake wants me back. Of course he did. He showed up at my apartment last week. He said he's done trying to win you back, that he realizes you're never going to forgive him. He said he wants to try again with me. And I told him I wasn't interested. That's when he got angry and told me that if I didn't take him back, he'd tell everyone that the affair was my idea, that I seduced him, that I broke up your relationship. But that's not true. No, it's not. But Sarah, people will believe him. He's charming, he's convincing, and everyone already sees me as the other woman. If he starts spreading rumors about me... She shrugged helplessly. So you decided to blow up my family instead? I decided to tell you the truth because you deserve to know. And because I'm tired of carrying this secret. I'm tired of feeling guilty about something that was so much bigger and more complicated than anyone knows. I stood up abruptly. I need to go. Sarah, wait. There's one more thing. I turned back to her, exhausted. What? The reason your mother changed her mind about wanting Jake to break up with you? The reason she started trying to convince him to stay? What? She told Jake that she'd been talking to your father about it, and they decided that you were too old to still be single. She said they were worried about you becoming an old maid, that Jake was probably your last chance at marriage and kids. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My parents hadn't been protecting Jake because they loved him. They'd been protecting him because they thought he was my only option. They thought I was too pathetic, too unlovable, too hopeless to find anyone else. Your mother told Jake, Rebecca continued, that she was doing you a favor by staying with you, even if he wasn't happy. She said that a mediocre relationship was better than no relationship at all. I walked out of that coffee shop in a daze. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to process what I'd just learned. My parents knew. They knew everything,
and they chose Jake over me anyway. They chose protecting my cheating boyfriend over protecting their own daughter. But more than that, they did it because they thought so little of me that they believed a man who betrayed me for 2 years was still better than I deserved. I drove home, poured myself a glass of wine, and called Lisa. "Sarah? What's wrong? You sound terrible." I told her everything Rebecca had told me, every sordid, embarrassing detail. The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long, I thought she'd hung up. "Lisa?" "I'm here. I'm just trying to figure out how to tell you that none of this surprises me." "What do you mean?"
Sarah, I've been watching Mom and Dad treat you like you're fragile and helpless your entire life. They've always acted like you needed to be managed, like you couldn't handle the truth about anything difficult. But this is different. This is exactly the same pattern, just bigger. Mom and Dad have always thought they knew what was best for you better than you did. They've always treated you like you were too delicate to make your own decisions. I thought about all the times growing up when my parents had made decisions for my own good without consulting me. All the times they'd kept information from me to protect me. All the times they dismissed my feelings as being too emotional or dramatic. Lisa, what do I do with this information? What do you want to do? I want to confront them. I want to scream at them. I want to make them understand how much they've hurt me. And then what? And then, I don't know. I don't know if I can ever forgive this. Then don't, Lisa said simply. Sarah, you don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them a relationship. You don't owe them anything. But they're my parents. And you're their daughter. That should have meant something to them when they chose to lie to you for over a year. After I hung up with Lisa, I sat in my apartment for hours thinking about everything I'd learned, about the conversations my parents had been having behind my back, about the way they'd manipulated both Jake and me, about the fact that they thought so little of me that they believed I was better off with a cheating boyfriend than alone. By the time I went to bed that night, I'd made my decision. I was done trying to repair this relationship. I was done hoping they'd choose me over Jake. I was done pretending that any of this was forgivable. But first, I was going to make sure they understood exactly what they'd lost. I spent the weekend planning exactly what I was going to say to my parents. I wrote it all down, revised it, practiced it in the mirror. I wanted to make sure I covered everything, that I didn't let my emotions derail me from getting the truth out there. On Monday evening, I drove to their house. They were both in the living room watching TV when I knocked. My mother opened the door, and her face lit up with surprise and hope. "Sarah, what a wonderful surprise! Come in, come in." "We need to talk," I said, walking past her into the living room. My father muted the TV and turned to face me. "Sarah, we've been hoping you'd come by. We miss you." "I know about Jake," I said without preamble. "I know everything." The color drained from both of their faces. "What do you mean?" my mother asked, but her voice was shaky. "I mean, I know that you've known about his affair for over a year. I know that you saw him with Rebecca and decided to help him plan our breakup. I know that you changed your mind and started trying to convince him to stay with me instead. I know that you've been having secret conversations with my cheating boyfriend about my relationship for months." My father cleared his throat. "Sarah, let's sit down and discuss this rationally." "No, Dad, we're not going to sit down and discuss this rationally. You're going to listen to me, and you're going to hear exactly what you've done to me." My mother sank onto the couch like her legs wouldn't support her anymore. "For over a year," I continued, "you watched me plan a future with a man you knew was betraying me. You watched me talk about marriage, about kids, about growing old together, and you said nothing. You let me make a fool of myself. We were trying to protect you, my mother whispered. Protect me? You were protecting him. You were protecting the man who was lying to me every single day. You were protecting the man who was sleeping with my best friend in the bed I shared with him. We thought it would be better if the breakup came naturally, my father said. We didn't want you to be hurt. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. We didn't want me to be hurt? Do you have any idea how much more it hurt to find out the way I did? Do you have any idea how much it hurt to discover that not only had my boyfriend been cheating on me for 2 years, but my own parents had been covering for him? We never meant for it to happen that way, my mother said, tears starting to form in her eyes. But it did happen that way. And then, when I was at my lowest point, when I needed you most, you chose him over me. Again. We never chose him over you, my father protested. Yes, you did. When I told you I didn't want him in my life anymore, you told me I was being dramatic. When I asked you to stop taking his phone calls, you told me I was being unreasonable. When I begged you not to invite him to dinner, you did it anyway. We thought you needed to work things out, my mother said. No, Mom, you thought I was too pathetic to do better. You thought I was too broken, too unlovable, too hopeless to find anyone else who would want me. That's not true, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Because that's what you told Jake. You told him that he was doing me a favor by staying with me. You told him that a mediocre relationship was better than no relationship. You told him I was too old to still be single and that he was probably my last chance. My mother started crying in earnest then, but I felt no sympathy for her. You want to know what the most heartbreaking part of all this is? It's not that Jake cheated on me. It's not even that my best friend betrayed me. It's that my own parents thought so little of me that they believed I deserved to be with someone who didn't love me or respect me. Sarah, my father said, standing up, we love you. We've always loved you. No, Dad, you love the idea of me. You love having a daughter who's settled down, married, giving you grandchildren, but you don't love me enough to support my decisions when they don't match your vision for my life. I pulled the spare key to their house out of my purse and set it on the coffee table. I'm done, I said simply. What do you mean? My mother asked, through her tears. I mean, I'm done trying to have a relationship with people who don't respect me, don't support me, and don't think I'm capable of making my own decisions. I'm done hoping that you'll choose me over my ex-boyfriend. I'm done pretending that any of this is okay. Sarah, please, my father said. We can work through this as a family. We're not a family, Dad. Families support each other. Families tell each other the truth. Families don't lie to each other for over a year to protect someone outside the family. I headed toward the door and they both followed me. If you walk out that door, my mother said, you might regret it someday. I turned around one last time. The only thing I regret is that it took me this long to realize that you never saw me as strong enough, smart enough, or valuable enough to deserve the truth. The only thing I regret is that I wasted so much time hoping you'd love me enough to choose me over someone who hurt me. We do love you, my father said desperately. Then prove it. Stop calling Jake. Stop taking his calls. Stop discussing my life with him. Stop trying to manipulate me into taking him back. Prove that you love me more than you love the idea of me being in a relationship. And if we do that, my mother asked, then maybe someday we can have a conversation about whether there's anything left to salvage here. But until then, I don't want to see you, I don't want to talk to you, and I don't want you in my life. I walked out of that house for the second time, but this time felt different. This time, I wasn't running away from something. I was walking towards something, toward a life where I was valued, respected, and loved unconditionally. This time, I knew I was never going back. The weeks following my final confrontation with my parents were strange. I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there and had finally set it down. But I also felt sad, not the desperate, heart-wrenching sadness I'd felt after the breakup with Jake, but a quieter grief for the family I'd thought I had and the parents I'd believed would always be in my corner. Lisa called me every few days to check in, and I could tell she was worried about me. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked during one of our conversations. "You sound almost peaceful. It's weird." "I am peaceful," I said, surprising myself with how true that statement was. For the first time in over a year, I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm not hoping for something that's never going to happen. I'm not trying to convince people to love me the way I deserve to be loved. "And you don't miss them? At all?" "I miss who I thought they were," I admitted. "But I don't miss the anxiety of wondering whether they're going to support me or undermine me. I don't miss feeling like I have to defend my own feelings to the people who are supposed to care about them most." 3 weeks after the confrontation, I got a text from my mother. "Sarah, your father and I have been talking. We want you to know that we told Jake we can't speak to him anymore. We realize we made mistakes. Can we please talk?" I stared at that text for a long time. Part of me, a big part of me, wanted to respond immediately, to rush back over there and try to rebuild what we'd lost. But a bigger part of me knew that one text didn't erase a year of lies and betrayal. I texted back, "I appreciate that, but I need more time." She responded immediately, "How much time?" That's when I knew nothing had really changed. She was still trying to manage me, still trying to control the timeline of my healing, still acting like my forgiveness was something she could earn with a single gesture. I didn't respond. 2 months later, something amazing happened. I got promoted at work. Not just a small step up, but a significant promotion to senior marketing manager, with a salary increase that made me feel financially secure for the first time in my adult life. My boss, Jennifer, called me into her office to give me the news. "Sarah, I have to tell you, the change in your work over the past few months has been remarkable. You've become more decisive, more confident, more willing to take risks. Whatever is going on in your personal life, it's made you a stronger professional." I almost laughed. "Thank you, Jennifer. I've been learning to trust my own judgment more." "Well, keep it up. The board was impressed with your campaign proposals, and they're excited to see what you do in this new role." After work that day, I went to the little bar near my apartment to celebrate. I wasn't much of a drinker, but this felt like an occasion that called for champagne. I was sitting at the bar, texting Lisa about the promotion, when someone slid onto the stool next to me. "Excuse me, but are you celebrating alone? Because that seems like a crime." I looked up to see a man about my age with kind eyes and a genuinely warm smile. He was attractive in an understated way, not flashy like Jake had been, but solid and real. "I got a promotion today," I said, surprised at how easy it was to talk to this stranger. "Congratulations. I'm David, and I insist on buying you another drink to properly celebrate." Normally, I would have politely declined. The old Sarah would have made excuses, would have worried about what it meant, would have overthought every aspect of the interaction. But the new Sarah, the one who had learned to trust her instincts and value her own worth, smiled back. "I'm Sarah, and I accept." We talked for 3 hours about work, about books, about travel, about everything and nothing. He was a teacher at the local high school, had never been married, loved hiking and cooking and old movies. He made me laugh, really laugh, and he listened when I talked like what I was saying actually mattered to him. When the bar started to close, he walked me to my car.
I know this might be forward, but I'd really like to see you again. Would you maybe want to have dinner this weekend? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I said, I'd like that. That night, I lay in bed thinking about how different everything felt now. 6 months ago, if a nice man had asked me out, I would have immediately started worrying about what Jake would think, what my parents would think, whether I was ready, whether I was making a mistake. Now, all I could think was, he seems kind. I enjoyed talking to him, and I'm curious to know more about him. It was that simple. David and I had dinner that Saturday at a small Italian restaurant downtown. He brought me flowers, not roses, not the predictable choice, but sunflowers, because he said they reminded me of my smile. We talked about everything, and I found myself telling him about my job, my dreams, my opinions on books and movies and politics, without once worrying about whether he'd approve. "Can I ask you something personal?" he asked over dessert. "Sure." "You seem like you've been through something difficult recently. I don't need to know what it was, but I want you to know that whatever it was, it seems to have made you incredibly strong. There's something about you that's just genuine, real, like you know exactly who you are." I felt tears prick at my eyes, but they were good tears. "Thank you," I said. "That means more to me than you know." On our third date, David met Mrs. Chen, who had taken to intercepting all my male visitors to check their character. She grilled him for 10 minutes about his intentions, his job, his relationship with his mother, and his opinion on proper dumpling preparation. When she finally let him pass, she pulled me aside. "This one has honest eyes too, and kind heart. Much better than the sad one who kept calling here looking for you." Jake had been calling my apartment building, apparently trying to get Mrs. Chen to pass along messages. She'd been hanging up on him for weeks without mentioning it to me. "Mrs. Chen, I don't need your protection from him." "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "You are good people. Good people deserve protection from bad people. Is my job as your landlady and your friend." I hugged her, this fierce little woman who had appointed herself my guardian without being asked. That night, David and I were sitting on my couch watching an old movie when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw my mother's name. "You don't have to answer that," David said gently. "No, I should, but I made no move to pick up the phone." "Family stuff?" he asked. I told him a little about my situation. Not everything, but enough for him to understand that my family and I were estranged. "Yeah, it's complicated. Most family stuff is." The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again.
This time I answered. "Hello, Mom." "Sarah, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks." I know. I needed some space to think." "Sweetheart, we need to talk. There are things happening that you need to know about." I felt David's hand squeeze mine supportively. "What kind of things?" "It's Jake," she said, and my stomach dropped. "Sarah, he's been arrested."
The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What do you mean, arrested?" "He was arrested last week for embezzling money from his company. Sarah, it's bad, really bad. They're saying he stole over $50,000. I sat down hard on my couch. David immediately muted the TV and moved closer to me. "But that's not all," my mother continued. "The police came here asking questions about him. They wanted to know about his relationship with our family, whether we'd noticed any signs of financial problems." "Why would they ask you that?" "Because, apparently, he listed us as character references on some loan applications. Sarah, he's been using our family name, our reputation to get credit. The police said he told lenders that he was practically family, that your father and I would vouch for him." My head was spinning. "He used our family to commit fraud?" "It looks that way. Sarah, there's more. They found evidence that he's been doing this for years. False loan applications, credit card fraud, identity theft.
The man we thought we knew. He's not who we thought he was. I thought about Rebecca's revelation, about the 2-year affair, about all the lies. This was just one more layer of deception. Mom, why are you telling me this? There was a long pause. Because we were wrong, she said, her voice breaking. We were so incredibly wrong about everything. About him, about you, about what was best for our family. Mom, let me finish, please. Sarah, your father and I have been doing a lot of talking since you left. Really talking. Maybe for the first time in years. We've been looking at how we handled everything, and we're horrified by what we did to you. I felt tears starting to form, but I wasn't sure if they were from relief or frustration or sadness. We chose him over you, our own daughter. We chose a man who was lying to everyone, stealing money, manipulating all of us over our own child. I don't know how we got so lost, Sarah. I don't know how we convinced ourselves that we were protecting you when we were actually betraying you. Mom, I know you can't forgive us right now. I know we don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that we see it now. We see what we did, and we're ashamed. We're so ashamed. I looked at David, who was watching me with concern and support written all over his face. What happened when the police came? We told them the truth about the affair, about the lies, about everything. We told them that Jake had been manipulating our family for years and that we'd been too blind to see it. And they told us that there were other families, other girlfriends whose parents he'd charmed, other people he'd used for character references and financial backing. Sarah, we weren't the only ones. He's apparently been running variations of this con for years. The full scope of Jake's deception was starting to become clear. I wasn't just one ex-girlfriend. I was part of a pattern. My parents weren't just gullible. They were marks in a long-running scam. The detective said something that really stuck with me. He said that people like Jake are experts at finding good people who want to believe the best in everyone and then exploiting that goodness. He said Jake probably targeted our family specifically because we were loving and trusting and wanted to help. I thought about all the times Jake had charmed my parents, all the ways he'd positioned himself as part of our family, all the conversations he'd had with them about me being difficult or emotional. It had all been manipulation. Sarah, I know this doesn't fix anything. I know this doesn't undo the hurt we caused you, but I need you to know that you were right about everything. You were right to leave him, you were right not to trust him, and you were right to leave us when we wouldn't support you. I was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of validation, of relief, of finally being seen and believed by the people who should have seen and believed me all along. I love you, Mom, but I don't know how to come back from this. I don't either, she admitted, but I'm hoping we can figure it out together when you're ready. Your father and I, we want to earn your trust back. We want to prove that we can be the parents you deserve. We know it won't happen overnight, and we know we might not ever get there, but we want to try. David squeezed my hand again, and I realized he was crying too. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready, if you're ever ready. After I hung up, David and I sat in silence for a while. Are you okay? He finally asked. I think so. I think I'm actually better than okay. How so? I thought about it for a moment. For the first time in over a year, I don't feel crazy. I don't feel like I was overreacting or being too sensitive or too dramatic. Everything I felt, everything I suspected, everything I worried about, it was all real. You were never crazy, David said gently. You were just surrounded by people who had their own reasons for not believing you. Yeah, but now I know that my instincts were right. My boundaries were reasonable. My decision to leave was the right choice. And your parents? I sighed. I don't know.
I want to forgive them, but I also need to protect myself. They made a choice to believe him over me, even when they had evidence that he was lying. That's not something that just goes away because he turned out to be worse than I thought. What does your gut tell you? My gut tells me to take it slow, to let them prove they've really changed before I trust them with my heart again. That sounds wise. 2 weeks later, I got another call, this time from Lisa. Sarah, I just heard about Jake from Mom. Are you okay? I'm actually great. It's weirdly validating to find out that I was right about him all along. Mom said she called you. How did that go? Better than I expected. But Lisa, I want to ask you something. Did you ever suspect that Jake was lying about more than just the affair? There was a pause. Honestly, yes. There were little things that never added up. The way he always seemed to have money but was vague about where it came from. The way he name-dropped connections that didn't seem quite right. The way he always knew exactly what to say to Mom and Dad to get them on his side. So I hadn't been the only one with doubts. Even Lisa had seen through Jake's act, but our parents' blind devotion to him had silenced her concerns just like it had silenced mine. Lisa, do you think they've really changed? I think they're scared. I think Jake's arrest forced them to confront the fact that their judgment was completely wrong, and that's terrifying for people who prided themselves on being good judges of character. Is that enough? I don't know, Sarah, but I think they're going to have to prove it to you over time, not just with words. That night, David and I were cooking dinner together in my tiny kitchen when he asked me a question that caught me off guard. Sarah, can I tell you something I've been thinking about? Of course. I've been watching you navigate all this family stuff, and I'm amazed by how strong you are, but I'm also amazed by how kind you are. Even after everything they put you through, you're still considering giving your parents another chance. I don't know if that's kindness or stupidity. It's kindness. It's also wisdom. You're not rushing back into a relationship with them, but you're not slamming the door permanently either. You're protecting yourself while still leaving room for growth and change. You think I'm handling this right? I think you're handling this like someone who knows her own worth and isn't willing to settle for less than she deserves. I think you're handling this like someone who's learned to trust her own instincts. As I looked at this man who had appeared in my life just as I was learning to trust myself again, I realized something profound. Everything that had happened, the betrayal, the lies, the family dysfunction, even the pain, had led me to this moment, to this life where I was valued and respected and believed, to this relationship built on honesty and mutual support instead of manipulation and control. Jake's arrest had given my parents a wake-up call, but I had already been awake. I'd already seen the truth, made the hard choices, and built a new life based on my own values and instincts. Now the question was, what came next?
6 months later, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called my parents and asked if they wanted to have lunch. "Are you sure?" David asked when I told him. "You don't have to do this for anyone but yourself." "I know, and that's why I'm doing it. Not because I think I should or because I feel guilty or because they've suffered enough, but because I'm curious to see if they've really changed, and I'm strong enough now to find out without losing myself in the process." We met at a neutral restaurant, a small cafe downtown that held no memories for any of us. My parents looked older, more fragile than I remembered, but also more genuine somehow. "Thank you for agreeing to see us," my father said as we sat down. "Thank you for not pressuring me into it," I replied. The conversation was awkward at first, stilted and careful. They asked about my job, my apartment, how I was doing. I gave polite but distant answers. Then my mother did something that surprised me. "Sarah, we're not going to pretend this is a normal family lunch. We know we hurt you badly, and we know we have to earn your trust back.
We're not here to ask for forgiveness. We're here to listen if you want to talk, and to show you that we're different people now." "How were you different?" I asked. My father cleared his throat. "We've been in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. We've been working on understanding why we were so easily manipulated, why we prioritized appearances over your well-being, why we thought we knew what was best for you better than you did. And we learned that we were so afraid of you getting hurt that we convinced ourselves that staying with Jake, even a cheating Jake, was better than you being alone. We were so terrified of you struggling that we tried to control your choices instead of supporting your strength." My mother nodded. "We treated you like you were fragile and incapable, instead of trusting that you were smart and strong enough to handle the truth and make your own decisions. We realize now that we didn't just fail you as parents in this situation, we failed you your whole life by not teaching you that we believed in your capabilities." These were the conversations I'd wanted to have for years, but hearing them now felt different than I had imagined. I didn't feel vindicated or triumphant. I just felt sad for all of us. "I need you to understand something," I said carefully. "I don't think you're bad people. I think you got caught up in wanting an easy solution to a complicated problem, and you let someone manipulate you into thinking that my feelings were the obstacle instead of Jake's behavior." "That's exactly what happened," my mother said, "and we're ashamed of ourselves for it. But here's what I need you to understand. I can't go back to being the daughter who needs your approval or management. I can't go back to pretending that your comfort matters more than my truth. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be between equals who respect each other's autonomy. We understand that, and we want that kind of relationship too. Do you? Because that means accepting when I make choices you don't understand or agree with. It means believing me when I tell you about my experiences instead of questioning my perceptions. It means supporting my decisions even when they make you uncomfortable." "We want to learn how to do that," my mother said. The lunch lasted 2 hours, and by the end, I felt cautiously optimistic. They seemed genuinely different, more humble, more willing to listen, more aware of their own limitations. "Would you be willing to do this again?" my father asked as we prepared to leave. "Maybe. Let's see how this goes." Over the next few months, we had lunch once a month. Sometimes the conversations were easy, sometimes they were difficult. They asked about David and genuinely seemed interested in my happiness, rather than just whether I was in a relationship. They talked about their therapy and the work they were doing to understand their patterns. Slowly, carefully, we began to rebuild something. Not the relationship we'd had before. That was gone forever. But something new and more honest. The real test came when I brought David to meet them. I was nervous about it, worried they'd revert to their old patterns of trying to manage my relationship. But they surprised me. "David," my father said during dinner, "Sarah tells us you're a teacher. That must be rewarding work." "It is, though some days are harder than others." "Sarah's always been drawn to people who care about making a difference. We're glad she found someone who shares those values." It was a normal, pleasant conversation between adults who respected each other's autonomy. No probing questions about our future plans, no hints about marriage or grandchildren, no attempts to insert themselves into our relationship. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. "I like him," she said. "He seems like someone who sees your strength instead of trying to manage your weaknesses." "He is." "Good. You deserve that." It was such a simple statement, but it represented such a fundamental shift in how they saw me that I almost cried. Spring arrived early that year, and with it came a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in longer than I could remember. My relationship with David was growing stronger every day, built on a foundation of honesty and respect that felt completely different from anything I'd experienced before. My career was thriving, my finances were stable, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My parents had been true to their word so far. They hadn't pressured me for reconciliation, hadn't tried to rush my healing process, and according to Lisa, had spent considerable time in family therapy trying to understand how they'd gone so wrong. They're different people now, Lisa told me during one of our weekly phone calls. I mean, they're still mom and dad, but they're more humble, I guess. More willing to admit when they don't know something instead of pretending they have all the answers. That's good, I said, though I wasn't ready to take her word for it. Sarah, I think you should consider seeing them. Not forgiving them or anything dramatic like that, but just seeing them. Let them show you that they've changed. I'm not ready for that yet. When do you think you will be? I don't know. Maybe never. And I need everyone to be okay with that possibility. In April, 6 months after Jake's arrest, I got a call from the district attorney's office. Jake had pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement, and they needed victim impact statements for his sentencing hearing. Miss Parker, while you weren't directly defrauded by Mr. Collins, his use of your family's reputation and his manipulation of your parents to gain credibility with lenders makes you an indirect victim of his crimes. You have the right to provide a statement if you'd like. I thought about it for days. Part of me wanted to stand up in court and tell everyone exactly what Jake had done to me, to my family, to all the people who'd trusted him. But another part of me just wanted to be done with him forever. David and I talked it through over dinner one night. What would you hope to accomplish? He asked. I guess I'd want him to know that I see him clearly now, that I understand he never loved me, that I was just another mark in his long con. Do you need him to know that for your own healing? I thought about it. No, I don't think I do. I think I need to let him be someone else's problem now. Then don't do it, David said simply. You don't owe him your time or energy, even for revenge. I decided not to provide a victim impact statement. Instead, I wrote Jake a letter that I never sent, pouring out everything I wanted to say to him. Then I burned it in my kitchen sink and felt lighter than I had in months. Jake was sentenced to 4 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to his victims. I felt nothing when I heard the news. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just nothing. He was finally someone else's problem. In May, something unexpected happened. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Rebecca. She looked healthier than she had during our coffee shop confrontation, less haunted. Sarah, she said, stopping her cart. How are you? I'm good, I said, and realized I meant it completely. How are you? Better. I've been in therapy, working through a lot of stuff. I heard about Jake's arrest. Yeah. I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else now. We stood there for a moment in the cereal aisle, 2 women who had been destroyed by the same man, trying to figure out how to talk to each other. Sarah, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for letting you carry all the blame while I stayed silent about what your parents knew. Thank you, I said. That means something. Are you happy? You look happy. I thought about my life, my job, my apartment, David. the peace I'd found in trusting my own judgment. I am happy, genuinely happy, maybe for the first time in years. I'm glad, she said, and I could tell she meant it. You deserved so much better than what we put you through. After she walked away, I realized something important. I could forgive Rebecca more easily than I could forgive my parents. Rebecca had been young and stupid and manipulated by someone who was very good at manipulation. My parents had been the adults in the situation, and they'd chosen to protect my abuser instead of me. The realization didn't make me angry anymore, just sad for what we'd all lost. In June, on the first anniversary of my move to independence, I threw myself a party. Not a big celebration, just David, Mrs. Chen, a few work friends, and Lisa, who drove down for the weekend. A toast, Lisa said, raising her glass of wine, to my sister who had the courage to walk away from everything familiar and build something better. To Sarah, Mrs. Chen added, who teaches old landlady that sometimes family is who you choose, not just who you born with. To the strongest woman I know, who showed me what it looks like to know your own worth and refuse to settle for less. As I looked around my tiny apartment at these people who had chosen to love and support me without conditions or manipulation, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you all, I said. A year ago, I thought losing my family meant losing everything, but I've learned that sometimes you have to lose the wrong people to make room for the right ones.
Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I was cleaning up when my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, then answered. Hi, Mom. Sarah, I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted you to know that we were thinking about you today. Lisa told us it was your anniversary of moving out, and we wanted you to know that we're proud of you. Proud of me? For standing up for yourself, for knowing your worth when we couldn't see it, for building a life that makes you happy. I felt tears starting to form. We know we don't have the right to be proud of you after what we did, she continued, but we are, and we love you. And if there's ever a chance for us to earn our way back into your life, we're here. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you understand now why I had to leave? Not just leave Jake, but leave you and Dad too? There was a long pause. Yes, she said finally. We understand that we made you choose between trusting yourself and trusting us, and we were wrong to put you in that position. We understand that we taught you that your feelings didn't matter as much as keeping everyone else happy. We understand that we failed you as parents. It was the first time either of my parents had taken full responsibility without making excuses or trying to minimize their actions. Thank you for saying that, I said. Sarah, I know it's too soon, and I know we have a lot more work to do to prove we've changed, but would you consider having lunch with us sometime? Just lunch, no pressure, no expectations, just a chance for us to show you that we're learning to listen instead of trying to manage you. I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built, at the happiness I'd found. I thought about David, who had shown me what it looked like to be loved without conditions. I thought about Mrs. Chen, who protected me without being asked. I thought about the strength I'd found in trusting my own instincts. Not yet, but maybe someday, when I feel strong enough to risk it. That's more than we deserve, she said. Thank you. After I hung up, I realized something profound had shifted. The conversation hadn't made me angry or upset. It hadn't reopened old wounds or made me question my decisions. Instead, it had confirmed that I was exactly where I needed to be, strong enough in my own worth that I could consider forgiveness without sacrificing myself for it.
6 months later, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called my parents and asked if they wanted to have lunch. "Do you want some moral support?" David asked when I told him. "You don't have to do this for anyone but yourself." "I know, and that's why I'm doing it. Not because I think I should, or because I feel guilty, or because they've suffered enough, but because I'm curious to see if they've really changed. And I'm strong enough now to find out without losing myself in the process." We met at a neutral restaurant, a small cafe downtown that held no memories for any of us. My parents looked older, more fragile than I remembered, but also more genuine somehow. "Thank you for agreeing to see us," my father said as we sat down. "Thank you for not pressuring me into it," I replied. The conversation was awkward at first, stilted and careful. They asked about my job, my apartment, how I was doing. I gave polite but distant answers. Then my mother did something that surprised me. "Sarah, we're not going to pretend this is a normal family lunch. We know we hurt you badly, and we know we have to earn your trust back. We're not here to ask for forgiveness. We're here to listen if you want to talk, and to show you that we're different people now." "How are you different?" My father cleared his throat. "We've been in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. We've been working on understanding why we were so easily manipulated, why we prioritized appearances over your well-being, why we thought we knew what was best for you better than you did. And we learned that we were so afraid of you getting hurt that we convinced ourselves that staying with Jake, even a cheating Jake, was better than you being alone. We were so terrified of you struggling that we tried to control your choices instead of supporting your strength." My mother nodded. "We treated you like you were fragile and incapable instead of trusting that you were smart and strong enough to handle the truth and make your own decisions. We realize now that we didn't just fail you as parents in this situation. We failed you your whole life by not teaching you that we believed in your capabilities." These were the conversations I'd wanted to have for years, but hearing them now felt different than I'd imagined. I didn't feel vindicated or triumphant. I just felt sad for all of us. "I need you to understand something," I said carefully. "I don't think you're bad people. I think you got caught up in wanting an easy solution to a complicated problem, and you let someone manipulate you into thinking that my feelings were the obstacle instead of Jake's behavior. That's exactly what happened," my mother said, "and we're ashamed of ourselves for it. But here's what I need you to understand. I can't go back to being the daughter who needs your approval or management. I can't go back to pretending that your comfort matters more than my truth. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be between equals who respect each other's autonomy. We understand, and we want that kind of relationship too." "Do you?" "Because that means accepting when I make choices you don't understand or agree with. It means believing me when I tell you about my experiences instead of questioning my perceptions. It means supporting my decisions even when they make you uncomfortable." "We want to learn how to do that," my mother said. The lunch lasted 2 hours, and by the end I felt cautiously optimistic. They seemed genuinely different, more humble, more willing to listen, more aware of their own limitations. "Would you be willing to do this again?" my father asked as we prepared to leave. "Maybe. Let's see how this goes." Over the next few months, we had lunch once a month. Sometimes the conversations were easy, sometimes they were difficult. They asked about David and genuinely seemed interested in my happiness, rather than just whether I was in a relationship. They talked about their therapy and the work they were doing to understand their patterns. Slowly, carefully, we began to rebuild something. Not the relationship we'd had before, that was gone forever, but something new and more honest. The real test came when I brought David to meet them. I was nervous about it, worried they'd revert to their old patterns of trying to manage my relationship. But they surprised me. "David," my father said during dinner, "Sarah tells us you're a teacher? That must be rewarding work." "It is, though some days are harder than others," David replied. "Sarah's always been drawn to people who care about making a difference," my mother added. "We're glad she found someone who shares those values." It was a normal, pleasant conversation between adults who respected each other. No probing questions about our future plans, no hints about marriage or grandchildren, no attempts to insert themselves into our relationship. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. "I like him. He seems like someone who sees your strength instead of trying to manage your weaknesses." "He is." "Good. You deserve that." It was such a simple statement, but it represented such a fundamental shift in how they saw me that I almost...
It's been 3 years now since I moved out of my parents' house and started building my own life. 3 years since I chose to trust my own instincts over everyone else's opinions about what was best for me. David and I got married last spring in a small ceremony in Mrs. Chen's garden. My parents were there, and while our relationship still isn't what it was before everything happened, it's become something better, more honest, more respectful, built on who we actually are rather than who we wished we were. Jake was released from prison 6 months ago. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he's living in another state, working at a car dealership, keeping a low profile. I feel nothing about this information except relief that he's far away from everyone who used to care about him. Rebecca and I will never be friends again, but we've reached a place of mutual peace. She sent me a card when I got engaged, congratulating me and saying she was glad I'd found happiness. It was a small gesture, but it meant something. Mrs. Chen is still my landlord and has appointed herself the honorary grandmother of our marriage. She brings us soup when we're sick and lectures David about proper husband behavior while secretly adoring him. Lisa and I are closer than we've ever been. She stood up at my wedding and gave a speech about how watching me walk away from everything familiar had taught her about courage. My career continues to thrive. I was promoted again last year and now run my own team. I've learned that trusting myself in personal relationships made me better at trusting myself professionally too. But here's what I want you to understand about this story. It's not a story about forgiveness or family reconciliation or happily ever after. It's a story about learning to trust yourself when everyone around you is telling you that your instincts are wrong. It's about understanding that people who truly love you will support your boundaries even when those boundaries are inconvenient for them. It's about recognizing that sometimes walking away from familiar dysfunction is the only way to make room for unfamiliar health. Most importantly, it's about learning that your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see it. I don't know if I did everything right. I made a lot of decisions based on instinct and hope rather than certainty, but I do know that every choice I made led me to a life where I'm valued, respected, and loved unconditionally. So here's my question for you. When was the last time you trusted your own judgment over everyone else's opinions about your life? When was the last time you chose your own peace over other people's comfort? And if you're in a situation where everyone is telling you to accept less than you deserve, I want you to know something. You're not crazy. Your feelings are valid. Your boundaries matter.
And sometimes, the people who claim to love you most are the ones who have the hardest time accepting that you know what's best for yourself. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it. And if you want to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations, make sure to subscribe. Remember, you deserve to be believed, supported, and loved exactly as you are. Don't let anyone convince you to settle for less. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you know.